All right, if you open up the first exercise and run it, just so you see, this is pretty much what it looks like. Why is it not? Weird things are happening with this computer, even weirder than usual. But this is, again, this is what it looks like over here. You'll notice a couple things. First of all, and I think I understand why the author does some of the stuff that he does, but I'm not totally sure. Instead of making this over here, instead of making this a date picker for both of these, all right, he made them both text boxes. All right, probably in a realistic app, you'd make it a date picker because you're making it harder. Plus the other thing, and it may not sound like a big thing, but notice in here there's 7/30/2016 in the example. And here there's 8/1. That's even a better example. Some people are going to put it in as 08-01, etc. And if you're looking for commonality, it's much better to use something like a date picker to do that. All right. Number of people. Okay, I guess that's okay. He doesn't really explain. I guess these are the three different bed types that you can have. So that's a single, that's a double, and I guess I don't know what that was. And you don't have to put anything in here for the special request, but you can. First name, last name, email, etc. It's pretty simple. That said, what we change in the next example is we make arrival date and departure date. We make both of those required fields. All right? And we do, and it's not a mistake, I mean to say compare and not range operator. We do a compare operator. We compare this date with this date. And the second date there, the departure date, must be later than the arrival date. Okay? All right. And most of the rest of this is drop down or choose. Again, that's not required. We put a required field validator in for first name. We put a required field validator in for last name and for email and for telephone number. And in the Chapter 7 stuff, we do a regular expression validator for the email. We do a regular expression validator for the phone number. Does all that make sense? Now, for some reason, when I did this, I tried to do a lot of copying and pasting, okay? And what you'll notice on yours, if you brought yours up, is you don't have this yet. They tell you to make this field, okay? But when I copied this one and I copied it from here to here, it took the size of this field, and instead of making it that size, it made it about that big. But when I typed it in manually, it seemed to work okay. And I don't understand why that would be the case. All right? But it was. So what I'm telling you is I'm more concerned with in here, I'm not that concerned if your stuff is a little bit, if you've got the amine effect where you've got a field that ends up over here. All right, when you didn't do it, I'm more concerned that your validators work, all right, and that we set the stuff up correctly. Does that make sense to everyone? So again, this, I don't know if you agree with this or not, this is a very busy form. There's a lot of stuff on there. What I'm going to do between now and next week is to try to figure out, okay, I want you to have to do a few of these things on your next test. But I want it where the form still looks fairly professional. All right, so I have to figure out what to remove, if anything, and et cetera, that kind of stuff. Okay. So when we look at this, it says open it. Okay, so again, here's mine. This is the starter one too, just so you know. There's no code in it, there's nothing. I've got the completed one. I went and did it this morning. But, so when you run it, right now at least, they say to run it, this is what it looks like. Okay? So they'll want you to put in a text box for this, a drop-down list for this, radio buttons for this, a text box, a text box, a text box, and this is going to be another drop-down. Does all that make sense? I don't think that's over any of you as far as being able to create that. Okay? So that was what we were supposed to do first, and we've already done that. So it says review the code, and in the style sheet content folder. A couple things again that the author does that he uses, like he's got that whatever target danger or something danger in there that he always uses. I use error, but it's not that big a thing one way or the other. All right, run the request page to see what's been done for you. Yes, we already done that. All right. add the control. So this is what we're going to do. It says, note the control for the arrival date is just a text box. Then add a text box for the departure date, so it's like the one for the arrival date. So what I want to show you is this. As I mentioned, this is what I did. I thought, well, that isn't hard. I'll just go over here where I've got the arrival date stuff, which is right in here, and I'll copy it to the clipboard. All right, I'll come down here, and I'll paste it in, and just change this from TXT arrival date. I'm using his stuff, so TXT departure date. All right, I'm not even going to worry about lining stuff up, etc. Now notice the text mode, you are saying that it's, it's a type date, etc. But when I did that, now watch, it'll be the same size, but when I did it this morning, it wasn't at all. See that? And I'm not sure why that is. We should be able to go in if we wanted to in the CSS and tell it to make all text boxes a certain width. We probably could go in and do that. But I'm not that concerned with that. I'm just more concerned that putting something in there and putting something in here that it's going to work. If you notice, if you look right there, if I take my mouse and put it over this, see that? I get the little arrows, so I can make it go, etc. I can fill it in, and I get it here. So they are there. It's a width thing, and I'm not sure what it was. When I did it again and I typed it in, it worked. But again, I'm not concerned with that, but please just put that field in. Then I thought, well, what if I come in here and do this? Thought, what if I go back here and I go into design mode? And see, that's the problem. Since it's bootstrapped, it's not like you can sit and play with this stuff. All right? So we've got less control. Then I thought, okay, then what if okay, there it is. What if I come over here and I grab the width? Let's grab the width of this one, and it doesn't have a width set. See that? So I tried to, think of ways to try to fix this without doing any CSS. All right? If there was an easy way to do it. And if there is, I don't know what it is. But I'm taking for granted that what I just said made sense to you. Even though it looks a little goofy, it still does work. All right, we might even be able to manually come in here and set the width. I don't know, I never even thought about doing that. But so if I come in here to departure date and come in here and say, for example, 175 pixels. I don't know if it'll take this or not, and if it does or does not, if it'll, well, notice how small it made it. But if I come over here now and look at it and run it, let's see if it made it any wider, or if it's still real little like that. So see, it is wider. Looks like if I doubled it, it would be around the right size. All right. Again, to me, this just was a little bit strange, and it does make you start to, hopefully at least, see the benefit of using things like CSS, where you have a standard size, and you're not constantly sitting there and having to jack with stuff like I'm doing right here. Okay, that's a little, well, it's got to be moved over, but it's about right now. Okay, it's not perfect, but you can see that. So I've gone through and I've done step 4. Any questions on that? Anybody not understand that? You could do that if you had to do it. To me, having me create some text boxes for you and then having you create another one is a waste of your time. All right, so I don't plan on doing something like that, but just for completeness sake. So the next thing that we want to do in step 5 is we want to add a drop-down list. So again, much easier, I think, to add the stuff in source mode, plus the comments are there for what you're supposed to add. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to find drop-down list. I'm just going to drag it in, let go, there it is. And they call these DDL for whatever reason. DDL, no people, for number of people. Okay. Now, one thing you may be aware of, you may not be aware of. Okay, everybody hear me? You might know this, you might not. We probably could go and set this thing up if we wanted to We probably could go set this up in page load where we did a for loop from 1 to 3. We probably could do that. There really is absolutely nothing wrong with doing it. But then I thought, well, would it be easier just to come into design mode here, and you can all do this, take your mouse. Anybody know what this thing is called here, this arrow? It actually has a name. It's called a smart tag. So if I come over here and I click on the smart tag, and I choose edit items, then I can click add, come over here, put in a 1, add, put in a 2, add, put in a 3, and add, and then click OK. Now, so you did that too fast. Well, the other way we could do it is to just manually type them in. There they are. So you can put in the list items in a multiple number of ways. All right? And if I save this now and run it, hopefully that's going to be in there. And it'll have the values 1, 2, 3, and 4 in it. I think that's what we put. I think I only put in 1, 2, and 3, and you're supposed to put 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so there they are. So I'll go and add one more. Just to show you, too, that if I wanted to, I can also combine them. So I can come back in here where we have this last one, highlight it, Control, put in another one. That wasn't done real well, but and put in a 4. All right. I don't care how you do it, but if you could do that, that would be good. I don't know what happened there. It's probably the doofus who put all that stuff in, me. So let's double check and make sure. All right, and there you see it. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Again, as I said, we could have gone in, and the way we did it before, we could have gone in, and in page load, you could even make a case for saying that would have been a better way to do it, because if we did it like that in page load, it would only be doing it once. Here it probably is regenerating it every time, which is kind of a waste of resources. All right. Any questions? I will do it the way I do it there. Okay, any questions on any of that? So we've done this, and we did the departure date. I'll take the ones that I'm doing, and I will do a little bit of tabbing on those so I can tell what's mine. All right.
That's why it's so small. You have a div with the columns 4 within the div column 4, so it's taking up.
Yeah, but wasn't the one above it like that too?
No, there's only one div. You have a div within a div. That's making it even smaller.
Oh, this one you mean?
Yeah.
I didn't. You're right. I've got 2 of them there. I didn't notice it. Thank you.
That's why it's so small.
Okay. Well, then let's see if we do that. And I'll bet you I did that in more than one spot on my other one. That's probably what one of my many problems was. But I should be able to remove that 350 pixels now, if what you say is correct, and I have no reason to doubt you. Well, even with that, now they do line up. All right, thank you. All right, so we've got that. Now I screwed this up. Okay, I'm calling that pulling in a mean from now on, just so you know. Okay? All right, so I pulled in a mean. All right? But it's okay. Again, I'm not really that concerned with it. I'm more concerned that you can set the interface up. All right? My guess is when you do the next test, it probably won't take you as long as this last one did, because you've got the logic in it already and you've got everything set up. So there's just going to be a few things to add. At least that's the hope. All right, like I said, I'm probably not going to write it till like Monday or so of next week. So, all right. Well, it screwed everything up. Look at my bed type. Everything in here is screwed up now. I wonder if that's at 350 pixels that screwed it up.
No, it's because you didn't remove the second ending div.
The other div? Okay. So somewhere,
So just right there, remove one of those ending div tags.
there you go.
Towards the top of what you can see.
Should be this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that should go over to here now. That should fix everything. All right, much better. Okay, thank you. And this looks a little more professional now too. So the next thing that we're supposed to do is we're supposed to come in and we're supposed to make radio buttons, okay? And I'm trying to remember if I used a list or not. I don't think I did, because I forgot about that. We could have one, but I'm just going to do it the same way I did it in here because I know this one eventually will work. Right, so, all right, so we're ready to come down and do, we've done our drop-down list, we're ready to do our radio buttons, okay? We've got this column small, 9 bed type, so I'm going to put in this div here, I'm going to put in 3 radio buttons, all right? So, come down here, grab the radio buttons, put in a first one, put in a second one.
What's a radio button list? Let me say what a radio list.
I don't understand the real big difference between radio buttons and radio button lists because by default, radio buttons are supposed to be mutually exclusive. That said, when you put them in a list, basically what you're saying is, what if I had a radio button on my phone, one that was over here, and I had another one that was over here? You with me?
Yeah.
Technically, as far as the system is concerned, they may be connected radio buttons, even though they're not. By putting them in a list and giving them a name, you're saying these things belong together, and nothing else, no other radio buttons do. That's the advantage that you get out of it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, and I'm going to try to give these a little bit better names. Well, that was screwy. All right, no, only one equal sign there. There we go. Thank you. All right, so I call them basically what they are, and what their shortcut for radio buttons is RAD. No, it's RDO, I think. RDO King. All right, and I also put text in there that said King. Just going to grab that. Just do it like this. RDO double. And the text is equal to 2 queens. And then finally, RDO single. And the text is going to be 1 queen. Okay? Now, let's double check. I'll come right back to it, but I want to make sure that it looks the way that I think it should be looking. So let's look over here. I think it's important that every time you make changes like this to save and then run it, make sure it looks the way you want it to look. Everybody see what we just added here? Again, it isn't perfect. You could say, well, that should be moved down a little. That's all stuff we could fix later with CSS. That's not what's important right now. All right, the special requests, right now there's nothing there. They want us to set the special requests up as a multi-line text box. All right, you don't have to look at me, but everybody please listen. What do you call a multi-line text box in HTML? It's a text area. But if you look here, if we go in here and we look at our toolbox, what you'll notice we don't have is a text area. So you don't make a text area, you put in a text box, but you give it a multi-line capability, and you tell it how many rows it can have. Everybody hear that? Okay. So that's what's next. So we're going to come down here on our code where it says multi-line text box right there. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to drag in a text box. I'm going to call it TXT special requests. I'm going to say the text mode is equal to multi-line. All right, which says, again, I can have multiple lines. All right, and the number of rows is going to be equal to 4. That's just an arbitrary number that the author picked. And then finally, they want us to set the CSS class to form control. That's something that he's already created. All right. Now, again, I'm going to save, I'm going to run it, and I'll come right back to it. But I want to look at it and make sure that it looks the way that it's supposed to look. There it is. Now, it doesn't look wide enough. Something looks goofed up there. It could be a div thing again or whatever. When I did it the first time, it was much wider than that. Again, I'm not worried about it because I do have it in there. Okay? So I'd have to go back and again take a look, as Evan said before, and double check to make sure I didn't double div, so to speak. All right? And it could even be this. It could be the class of form control. I don't know.
Oh, get rid of the hyphen in the CSS class.
Yep, that would do it too. Thank you. See, I'm glad when I make errors, I'm glad you guys are watching. So, yep, that's the way it's supposed to look. All right? So far, you can see what we've built, correct? Is there anything, and I'll put that back on, maybe we're still keying that in, but is there anyone, I'm asking, this is your time, is there anyone who does not understand anything we've done so far? You've got a question on anything?
Do you have to call the radio boxes audio?
No. In fact, when I did mine originally, I went and changed them, but then I was getting kind of confused, so I just went back and I used Microsoft. I always thought it was rad for, the first 3 letters in radio, but all right. But then I found a thing online, and I went and looked at the author's key to see what they used, and they used RDO. So I said, the heck with it, I'll just use RDO. I don't care. So there's the text box, all right? And the next thing we're supposed to do is make for the first and last name, we're supposed to come in here. I guess we're not even doing anything for the first name, all right? What does the next step say? Add a no, that was that one. Number 8, add the text boxes for the last name, email address, telephone number entries. Now, why would you add one for the last name and not one for the first name? Does that, maybe just me, does that make sense to you? It doesn't to me. So even though it doesn't say it in there, I'm gonna go and add it. There, it's already in there? Okay. There it is. Good. Then we'll steal that one. That'll work. So let's come in here and put that one in. And we'll call this TXT last name. Again, I'll just keep as I have been doing. Hit enter to show where my stuff is. All right. And I think everything is in there already. I'm looking. ID run it. I think that's all that's there. So we have to do the same thing for the email address, and we have to do the same thing for the phone number. So again, to me, you may or may not agree, oops, but to me it just makes sense to take everything that I've got in here copy it to the clipboard, find the next one, and paste it in. So this next one will be TXT email. And then the last one will be TXT phone. Could call it telephone, it really doesn't matter. All right, and then let's run it, make sure that those are in there and they look okay. Okay. I mean, there's symmetry to it. It looks pretty decent. I'm not saying it's fantastic or anything, but it looks pretty good. All right. So the last thing that I think we have to do in here,
For the time spent on it,
what's that?
for the time spent on it, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Well, they also gave us a bunch of stuff to start with, which helped a lot. So we're up to step 9. Add the drop-down list for the preferred contact with 2 options, email and phone. Okay? Well, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but we've already got a drop-down list that we put in there before. And I know that one appeared at least to work. So where we have that drop-down list here, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'll make my changes to it. So I'm going to come down here, under drop-down, paste that in, and I'm going to change this to DDL, preferences. And get rid of, there's only 2 preferences, and they are, what were they, email and phone or something like that? Email and telephone, okay. And again, I will run it one more time to make sure everything is looking the way that it should be looking. All right, there's my preferred method, there's email, and there's telephone. And if you look on the screen here, not at me, but on the screen, I think that if I come back here and add a CSS class without the hyphen, equal form dash control, I'll probably get the same width as the other ones. That's my hope, at least. Okay. So as far as I can tell, with the ASPX, we're finished with this chapter. Okay, we're not done yet. We still have to add our code, and that's fine. They say add the text mode attributes. We already did that. Test the form to make sure it looks right. Make any adjustments. Well, we've kind of been doing that as we've been going along. All right, so we are up to step 13 of 16, which says add the C#. All right, so let's take a look at what that says. Anyone have any questions on any of the ASPX stuff? Does that all make sense? All right, you'd all be able to make changes to your current file, your current loan calculator, to add radio buttons, check boxes, and I wouldn't say you got to do it. You got to use a radio button list, or you can't use it. No, you do it whatever way you want to. I'm not that concerned with that. All right, so we're up to step 13. Code a load event handler to set some starting values for the form. You'll use the private variables at the top of the page for this. Specifically, use the current date variable to set the arrival date in the current year for the copyright statement in the footer. Finally, set the checked attribute of the King radio button to true. So that'll be our default. All right. So if we come in and look at our code, the author is saying we've already got these fields. Make that a little smaller so you can see it. And we want to come in here. What do we always put in our page load because we only want this to happen once?
Unobtrusive validation.
Not. That'll be the next one. We're not doing this. All right. And again, what that is basically saying is we really and truly don't, unless you're posting it back, okay? And when you're posting it back, that means you're changing it. But we don't want this to reload when it doesn't have to reload. And that's what we're telling it right there. Okay? So in here, there's 3 lines. Well, we want the arrival date. We want to set that equal to current date. And just so you know, if you look up on the screen here, that's current date. It's literally going out and it's creating a date time object, and it's grabbing the information. The dot today is grabbing today's date. So it's going to set that up for us as, for example, here it'll be 9-14-2017. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's saying pull the date from the system clock and stick it in the text box. That's what it's telling you to do. All right? So why is it giving me an error? Cannot implicitly convert. Oh, why do I keep doing that? It's dot text. There we go. All right. Our year, which is LBL year dot text, that's going to be equal to the current year. And then finally, we want the radio button for king to be set to true. Well, for some reason, I've got double and I've got single, but mine doesn't show king. So what did I do to screw that up? Go back and look.
The arguments that are
You're right. So RDO king dot checked equal true. That's the first part. There's more that we have to do, but after putting in those 3 lines, I'm going to save. I'm going to run this. And please look up on the screen here. What that's saying is that first text box should now have today's date in it. That's what the first line does. There it is. No, it isn't. That's okay. We'll look at it in just a second. But that's where that should be. All right. And down at the bottom, there's the 2017. That's where it's getting that from, the year. All right. And the other thing is the king is checked. So those 2 work, but for some reason, this isn't set. Let's look and see if we can figure out why that's the case. TXT arrival date text equal current date. I don't think there's anything I have to do to. That already was made into a string right there, so it already should be in string format. Not sure why it's not showing me that. Did anybody try running yours? Does yours show? No? This is the one I did this morning and it worked. Well, let's just go on. Well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. All right? I'll look at it during the break. So what else is left in here? Well, if we go and look at it in design mode, you notice we have 2 buttons. We've got a submit button and we have a clear button. Okay? Doesn't matter which one we do first. Why don't we do the clear? And so we'll do the clear, and then we can come back and do the submit. It really and truly doesn't matter which one of these you do first. All right. Well, when you think about what do we want to have happen when you clear, there's a lot of stuff. All right. Again, if you go back and you look, it'll be easier to show it to you on here. There's quite a few things we have to clear. Look at this. We want to set that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things with 6, 7, 8, 9, looks like 10 things we want to reset. Now, anything that we don't want to have a value in, we're going to set its dot text to double quote, right? All right. Our drop downs, if we want it to be the initial value, we're going to use a selected index of 0. Okay. Radio button, if we want to make sure that indeed that's the king, we're going to have to do just what we just did and set RDO king dot checked equal to true. So let's go in and take a look. So here's the clear event. Just taking it from the top. TXT, the arrival date, dot text, should be equal to that current date, which probably still isn't going to work, but that's okay. Our departure date, dot text, that's the first one, we'll set equal to the empty string. Somebody tell me, look on the screen here, what did that last line just do? What?
First, set it to the first.
There's nothing. There's nothing chosen. If we wanted there to be a default, if we knew most people would want the king, we could, or not the king, this number. So we knew that most of the time people came husband and wife, wife and wife, whatever. Two people came. Okay? Then we could set that if we wanted to. Remember, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we could set it to 1, meaning it would be set to 2 by default. All right? We're setting it to -1, meaning nothing is set. So the user will have to actually change that. Okay? All right. We'll set that king back again. Does everybody realize that if for some reason, if you look on the screen here, don't ask me why I do this, but let's just say I didn't really know what I was doing. That's not that big a stretch. So if I came through here and I said RDO king dot checked equal true, then underneath it I said RDO double dot checked equal true, then underneath that I said RDO single dot checked equal true, I wouldn't get an error message. But every time I put a new one in, it would take the focus. In other words, only one of those can be selected, right? So the last one that's selected, if I put in 3 of them, would be the one that's actually going to be highlighted. That would be a dumb thing to do. But it's not, what I'm saying is it's not illegal to do that. So if I want to force it, I want to say be there to be no doubt. I could say, for example, I could come in here and say RDO double dot checked equal false, and RDO single dot checked equal false. Now you could make a case and you could say that's overkill. By turning the one on, the other two should always be off anyway. And I'm just telling you, I'm leaving no doubt. And what are we doing here? Again, please look up on the screen. We are moving our way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that's what we've done so far. So we're up to special requests. We want that text to be equal to nothing. And then most of the ones that are left are fairly simple to do. The first name dot text is equal to double quote, double quote. The last name dot text is equal to double quote, double quote. The email dot text is equal to double quote, double quote. The phone dot text is equal to double quote, double quote. All right. And we've got 2 more things to do. Let me make this I think we could probably fit it all in here. I'm going to say that DDL, our preferences dot selected index is equal to 0. So we're just going to choose one of those. We'll have to make that a little smaller. There we go. And then finally, that message on the bottom is double quote, double quote. So once again, this is your opportunity to ask, are there any questions over any of the stuff that we are doing in here? So I'm going to save this, and if you all just stop typing for a second, because if you look up on the screen here, this is my time to check this. So I'm going to come in here. Remember that right now, I can put values in here, right? So I can come in here and put values into each one of these. Okay, that's good. I can just put the same thing in here. We don't have any validators yet.
Current date's on that drop down, but that's the only thing I've found for current date.
But I want to come in here and add something to all of this. Why? Because I want to click my clear button then and see if the clear button's working. All right, so I think everybody'd agree something is selected for everything. Click clear. All right. And it looks like it was all set back.
When you click the other radio button, both the king and the two queens were selected.
Yeah. That's
When
what
I-
was gonna say too.
When I clicked what?
Like
The other?
two
You
queens.
can select more than one
Select
radio
one.
button.
Ah, okay. We'll have to look at that. That's pretty neat. Oh, I think I know what it is, too. I should have given them a name.
I think I can have all of them like the same.
And you know what? I'd like to tell you, I'd like to say, you know what? Hey, I did that on purpose to see if you were. No, I didn't. But it's good that it happened because it does show you some of the stuff with the properties of these, and you see what happens when you didn't set them. All right? We needed to give them a group name, and we didn't do that. So please look up on the screen here. We're going to have to go back to our ASPX file. All right? And go back into your source. And for each one of those radio buttons that we have right here, we've got to give it a group name. Thank you for finding that. So group name, well, it's what kind of beds you have, right? So let's just call it bed. All right. That fixed the first thing. We still have a problem in here. Okay? And I think I know what the problem is. So now let's see if we choose, can we choose only one radio button? Okay? So that fixed that. Everybody agree? That fixed the first thing. All right. There still is a problem though, and that was on me. I forgot to put another thing in here. Again, I'd like to say, oh, you did it on purpose. No, I didn't. But we're going to check it anyway. So let's go back up, and maybe this is what you were saying, Brady. I don't know. But we're going to go back up first to the arrival date. Okay, that's right here. Okay, you can see all the stuff we've got in here. There's the ID. There's the run at. There's the text mode. There's the CSS class. All right. I'm going to try, well, I guess we do have a text mode date in there. All right. I don't know why, but on mine I put date time, but that shouldn't matter. Well, the date time is supposed to allow you to set the time as well. All right. But I'm going to come back to this one. I do have a text. I thought that was going to be what the problem was. All right. Oh, it did it. Setting it to date time instead of date, that did it. Okay. So let's go back, because I wasn't trying to confuse anyone, not even myself, but let's go back and the changes we made in the ASPX file, change your text mode for the arrival date and for the departure date. They're currently set to date. Change them both to date time. All right, so the one here and the one down here. Does that make sense? Change both of those. All right. And then also, for our radio buttons, for each radio button, add a group name equal. It has to be the same name exactly. So now we have done the first 12 steps, and we did step 13. I'm doing it a little out of order, so I did the clear, so we did 15. So the only thing that's left is to actually put in the code for our last button. All right. And if you would look up on the screen here, let's take a quick look at that. That will be in our submit button. I don't know if anybody, does anybody still need that information?
I have a question. Why is preferences set to 0, but the other drop down is
It's just a bad, we didn't have to. We could have set them both to 0. So one would have been the number of people, etc. You could do it any way you want, just to show you that if you want nothing set, it's -1. All right. Again, it's, and I've said this to you in other classes, it would be like, this isn't the same thing, but if we had a drop down and we were doing states, I would probably have Missouri as the one that was selected. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of preference, just to show you a couple different ways that this could be done. That's all. We'll finish this exercise because there's literally only one line of code we have to put in, okay? And as soon as we finish that, then we'll take a nice break. All right, everybody has this? All right. So let's go back into and find our submit button. And all we want to do, if you look up on the screen here, is on the very bottom, when we run this, when you click the submit button, when you do click it, right now if I click submit, okay, nothing happens. It posts back, etc., but nothing happens. We want a message down on the bottom here. And that message should say, thank you for your request. We will get back to you within 24 hours. Okay? So that's what we're going to put in. So it's the message, lbl message.text equals, I'm going to put this over 2 lines because otherwise it won't fit. Thank you for your request. And they put a line break in there and a plus sign. Make that smaller so you can see it. There. That'll work. We'll get back to you in 24 hours. All right? And that literally is everything. I need, except for the semicolon. Okay? As I sat yesterday in the laundromat at the apartment complex that I live in, reading my Kotlin book, all right, I just was really enjoying it because with Kotlin, you don't need semicolons. And that may not seem like a big thing, but I like it. If you put them in, they just get disregarded by the compiler so it doesn't care. Not only that, you can take Java code and you'll learn Java next semester where you need semicolons. And you can write Kotlin code right in the Java code and then leave the semicolons out, which I find really confusing. But you can do it. All right? And because Brady requested it, you are going to join. You are going to learn Kotlin next semester. You all are. So, or at least a little bit that I know you're going to learn. So we put all this stuff in there. Right now, I think you'd agree we have no validators. Everybody agrees? We have no validation that we're doing. So all I'm going to do, period, is I'm going to go down to the bottom and I'm going to click submit. And there's my message. Everybody see it? So what have we done so far? Just to recap. We had to make this a date time, and we added this as a text box, and we're making that a date time. We added the drop down with 1, 2, 3, or 4. We added a radio button, a group of radio buttons that we had to remember to use a group name for, all right, that had king, 2 queens, and a queen. We had special requests, and then we added the text boxes for our last name, our email address, our phone number. We added the drop down, and that drop down had email in it and telephone, all right, and we added this. And lastly, before we take a break, if you look up on the screen here, we made a bunch of these things type form control. So if I go in here to content and I go down to site.css and we find form control, I thought he put it in here. He might have put it in someplace else. I don't know. All right. But with form, I think that's actually a Bootstrap thing. And the form control, it's making sure everything is the same width. Okay? All right, I have 138. It's almost 140, so let's come back at 155, please. and we will go through the stuff for Chapter 7.